Hey everybody, Joel Hoffman here. This is part 4 of a 6-part series on Excel that I'm doing, and the reason I'm doing it is to augment classes that I teach in person on Excel. There's 2 classes, 3 sessions each, if you will, so 6 classes, and these videos are going to help those students and me in the future go back and review what we learned. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm here on Zoom recording. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to get right into doing some things in Excel. So this is class 4 of 6, and if you've been in these classes on Zoom or live for that matter, they may be a little different because each live class that I do may get a little bit further than the next one. One may not get as far. So there may be things covered in each of these 6 videos that is a little different from class. But here we go. So I'm going to share my screen. And there we go. And let's make sure I have another computer here in this Zoom meeting with me, so I can make sure that it's presenting to me what is being recorded. All right. So what you see right now is just a blank Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to make a lot of assumptions. This is part 4 of 6, so we'll review a little bit to get where I need you all to get today for this class. But I'm going to do it quick. You can always pause the video, stop the video, rewind the video. That's what's awesome about watching videos on YouTube or Vimeo or wherever. You have that opportunity. So we learned a little bit earlier about just populating the spreadsheet quickly. We learned about filling cells. For example, if I was in cell B2 and I typed the word Jan, Excel might be able from just that to help me populate a bunch of column headings for the months of the year, January through December. I can help Excel a little bit by putting the next month into that cell, and if I click and drag, left click and drag across those 2, and I grab this little green box button, this little fill button at the bottom right of that selected area, click and hold, left click and hold, and I drag it across, Excel assumes from the Jan-Feb that I want copied a series of months. And sure enough, that was the correct assumption. So January, February, March, all I did was type January, February. So one good thing to remember if you're building an Excel spreadsheet and you're putting together series like this that you think Excel could copy and make for you, do it in such a way that it's easy for Excel to figure that out, and then you can copy all you want, and Excel, will fill in the series for you. All right, so we're going to do the same thing. Earlier in this video series, over here in the A column, we started typing tank numbers. I was just using, excuse me, an example of tanks as if we were building a spreadsheet on water tanks, oil tanks, chemical tanks, whatever. Salt tanks, doesn't matter, a series of tanks and their production through the year, January through December. We were going to just make up some numbers, and then we were going to learn about Excel formulas. So I'm going to type tank 2 under this. And if I click and drag just like I did with January, February, and grab that fill handle, drag it down, Excel will correctly assume that I wanted a series starting with tank 1, 2, and continuing that count 3, 4, 5. So I didn't have to type tank 3, 4, 5. So now I'm going to introduce you to a little different way of populating this data. I'm going to fill out this entire area. I'm going to teach you a new function within Excel, and it's called the Randomize Function. What random does, well, let's have Excel tell us what it does. Let's start a function with the equal sign in cell B3. Remember, all I'm going to do here is teach you about a function that will help us populate all these cells very quickly. So we don't have to, we don't have to manually enter 60 numbers so that we can move on and learn about some other Excel features. So I'm going to start this equals, and you guys know from the other classes, if I start typing with a letter, for instance, randomize starts with R, and so I push an R right here, Excel immediately starts presenting me with functions that start with the letter R. So I'm going to use my arrow key, and I'm going to arrow down to, yeah, there it is, the rand or randomize function. And what it tells us that randomize does over here in this little box of extra info, it returns a random number greater than or equal to 0 and less than 1. Okay, so that's going to make some sense here in a bit. But this function just picks a decimal between 0 and 1. Okay, a decimal between 0. Actually, what did it say? A greater than or equal to 0. So greater than or equal to 0, but less than 1. Okay, a decimal, right? So if I want a decimal, if I want this number to be an integer, say between 1 and 100, or between 0 and 100, and I know this is between 0 and 1, I need to multiply this randomized number we're going to get from this function by 100, okay? Let's see how this looks. So I've selected, either with my arrow keys or with my left mouse button, I've selected the randomize function. I'm going to hit the tab key so that Excel automatically puts the randomize function, spells it out the way it needs to be spelled out in cell B3. I'm going to close that function with a right paren. Okay, but as I stated, I don't want a number between 0 and 1. I want a number between 0 and 100. So I'm going to multiply this by 100. So I'm going to use the asterisk button on my keyboard. That's above the 8. And I'm going to type 100. So there's my formula I want you all to have in cell B3 if you're following along in the same cells as me here. So we're saying with this formula, remember, we're saying Excel, pick a decimal between and including 0 and less than 1. Give me a decimal, then I'll multiply it by 100 so that I end up with numbers, integers, numbers between 0 and 100. Okay, so I think we've got our formula right. I'm going to hit enter. All right, so Excel randomly picked a number. That number was between 0 and 1, including 0. The random number picked was 0.64, because the randomize function only randomizes or picks a number between and including 0 and 1. Okay, so it was 0.64, but I wanted numbers between 1 and 100, so I multiply that by 100, and I got 64.92759. And I don't need all those decimal places. So we also learned in earlier classes that I can come up to the ribbon of the Home tab on the menu bar, and there's two buttons here that allow me to decrease the decimal places in this number or increase the decimal places in this number. Well, I don't need 5 decimal places. Maybe 1 would be nice. I'm thinking, this is my spreadsheet. Yeah, I'd like to see 1 decimal place. So I'm going to decrease by left mouse clicking on the decreased decimal, and I end up with 64.9. Okay? So remember, that is a random function. It is a function, a mathematical function that will change, that number will change every time we enter something new in the spreadsheet. And then whenever anything is entered new in the spreadsheet, Microsoft Excel recalculates the entire spreadsheet. So every time the spreadsheet's recalculated, this number will change. Now you remember from one of our earlier classes in this series how to force Excel to recalculate. There's a button that is the recalculate button. It's the F9, the function key, not F together with 9, but at the top of the keyboard, probably in most keyboards, there's a key that says F9. All right, it's a function key, and I'm going to hit it. Bam, my tank 1 volume in January changed. Whenever I have Excel recalculated, like I'll do right now, that randomize function is also recalculated. So Excel, every time you hit recalculate, or every time Excel manually, every time Excel automatically calculates the spreadsheet, all random functions will be done again. We're gonna fix that here in a second. Give you we're gonna learn some ideas around making these changes permanent. So now that I have this randomized formula, this function, the way that I want it, I'm going to copy it across these cells where I want just a bunch of random data. Okay, so I'm going to grab the fill handle. I'm going to drag it across the months. I can't do it at the same time like you can with some formulas to be copied, so I've got to make this 2 steps. Not sure why Excel doesn't allow 1 step there, but anyway, I copied that function, that formula, across all the months for tank 1. Now I'm gonna take the fill handle from that selection and drag it down across the rows through tank 5, and I've got all our 60 cells of data filled with some random numbers between and including 0 to 1 times 100. All right, so remember what I said. These numbers will change whenever the worksheet is recalculated. So if I hit F9 right now, all the numbers change. Every time I recalculate the spreadsheet, the numbers change. Or anytime Excel automatically recalculates the spreadsheet, that will happen anytime you put a number in a cell or create a formula for a cell. Anytime you change the worksheet, in any way, Excel will recalculate the worksheet. So if I were to enter 333, when I hit enter, Excel is going to recalculate the spreadsheet and all those numbers above will change. Okay, so just be aware of that. I removed the number and they all changed. So anytime we hit F9 right now, this number recalculates. I'll tell you a fun way you might use the random function. If you're pretty good with Excel, and you guys are getting there for sure with these classes, you could build the football pool for your office if you have one for the Super Bowl. A lot of times, you know, parties will be thrown, you know, not parties, but they'll get together a football pool and there'll be 10 numbers down one way and 10 numbers across the other way. Well, those need to be randomized. So a person that wants to build one of those and truly make the rows and column numbers random we'll use something like Excel's randomize function and build those out. So that's just one thing you might use random for. Randomize is good too for us, you know, just statistical probabilities and whatnot. So anyway, what we used it this time for, A, to teach you about the randomize function, but B, I'm going to teach you about a different kind of copy and paste that you may find you use a lot. I know I do in Excel. And it's, instead of just copy paste, it's copy paste special. Okay? So I know right now that all these numbers are going to change every time Excel recalculates the spreadsheet, or every time I hit F9 and force a recalculate of the spreadsheet, right? I don't want that. At some point, I want all these numbers to be locked in place as they are and not randomized anymore, not changed anymore. So let's do this. Let's do a copy of all these numbers. So let's left click and drag across all these numbers. All right. Now, I'm going to come up here. There's always different ways to do stuff. I'm going to come up here in the far left side of the ribbon of the Home tab on the menu bar, and I'm just going to hit that word copy right there. Just going to click on copy. Okay. Now look around this area we selected. Excel's letting us know this is a selected section of the spreadsheet. We have just hit copy, and so Excel is waiting on us to do something with that selection of data. Right, so right now that data is coming from a formula that we built. In every one of these cells, that data is not, you know, we didn't type in these numbers. They were generated by a formula, and it's the formula that's in these cells. But I would like to make the numbers that are in these cells permanent. So I've copied the area, I've copied these cells with the numbers that are presented to us, but Excel's smart enough to know there are not only values that we see, there are formulas that underneath that, our randomized formula that produced those numbers, okay? So when we hit copy, Excel puts into memory the formulas and the values, okay? So here's what we're going to do. Just on cell B3, January tank 1. Okay, so I have my cursor. I'm going to move it right over B3, January tank 1, and I'm going to right mouse click. Okay, so I'm going to right mouse click. And it brings up a menu of things that I can do here in B3. Several of those options include pasting in different ways. Okay, so if you look at the first paste option, it's just paste. If we were to use that, Excel would paste the formulas right over the top of the formulas we copy. That would do nothing. But look at the second option where the little icon says 1, 2, 3. Paste the values. Now, if I paste the values over the top of all those formulas, the formulas will be gone, and I'll be left with only the values, which is what I said I wanted. And this is a skill you need for sure in Excel. Sometimes you'll copy and paste formulas, but sometimes you'll copy and paste data and values that are generated by formulas. So let's try that. Let's paste special the values that we currently have. So I'm going to hit values. Okay. Now it doesn't look like anything happened, but if we click on any of these cells now, and we look up here at the formula bar to see what's actually in them, it's an actual number now. It's no longer a formula. It's not a randomized times 100 formula. We copied the formula and the current number presented in the cell, and then we copied that number, the value only, back over the top of the cells that had formulas in them. So we're left with only values, only numbers. So if I were to hit F9 right now to recalculate the spreadsheet, nothing happens. Okay? Nothing happens. So now we have a bunch of data, not based on formulas, but a bunch of data that will stay the way it is right now. Okay, so now we're going to learn something new. We have what's called here a data table. Okay, now Excel, you know, it can kind of sort of figure out some things about data tables, but if we tell Excel that this is a data table, Excel will do a ton of extra stuff for us because it doesn't have to assume at that point. We're telling it, hey, this is a table of related data. All right. So we're still on the Home tab of the menu bar, and you'll notice right almost perfectly in the middle, there is a button that says Format as Table. As long as we're clicked anywhere inside this table of data, when we select that format as a table, Excel will understand to include the entire table, and we're going to see that happen. So I'm going to click on that button in the ribbon that says Format as Table, and Excel gives us a bunch of ways to format, mostly having to do with color. So you pick your color preference of how, you know, how this table is going to look color-wise. I'm going to just come down here. I like alternating colors for rows, so I think I'm going to pick a light blue table. So here we go. Excel double checks with me. It's asking me, now, where is this table of data you want me to format as a table? And it pre-populates the range. It says, okay, what I'm seeing, Joel, is that you have a table of data from A2 right here, the top left most part of this box of data, down to M7, which is tank 5 in December. Yep, that's exactly right. And then Excel's also giving me the option here in this format as table box to let Excel know that my table has headers or not. In this case, January, February, March, April, May, those are headers to the data underneath those headers. So I want to make sure that I check this box so that Excel understands, yes, January, February, March, those labels are headers. They're not data. They're not part of the data in this table. They're headers. So that needs to be checked. I'll say OK. And now I've got this colored box. You'll notice a few things interesting about this box. Excel noticed in cell A2 that I didn't have anything typed there. So it just put something in. You may or may not want that. Maybe I go ahead and I put something in there. I say prod data for production data, maybe. I don't know. I'm going to stretch that out just a tad. You'll notice there's something else that Excel did. It added these little arrow drop-down menus for all the columns. And we're going to learn about those. Those are called filters. Powerful stuff. Okay. So just for fun, we've got this table now of data. Let's say we added tank 6. All right, so I'm going to come down here and I'm starting to type tank 6. You'll notice that Excel, when I typed a new row of data next to, underneath this table of data, Excel automatically assumed I must want that as part of this data table. Important to remember. All right, so tank 6, we could fill in with some numbers, but maybe this is a brand new tank, it's being built, so we're not doing anything with that right now. The same thing will happen if I go to the right of this data table, and maybe I'm going to put a total column here. So I say total. Excel automatically assumes, because I typed something in the column immediately to the right of this data table, that I must want to include that column in the table itself. Okay? Now, as long as our cursor is inside the table, we've selected a cell inside this table, you'll notice up on the menu bar, which is up here at the top, all right, we've been on the Home tab forever, you'll notice over here that a new menu option or menu bar option appeared that is called Table Tools Design. Okay, if I click on that, I now get a completely new ribbon that helps me do different things with this table. It applies to the entire table. For example, if I wanted to go from blue to orange, or to gray, or to yellow, or to some different shade of blue, all of that happens now. I can run along here and see what these different formats look like. If I click on that format, it changes the whole table to that format. Something else you'll notice is that in the middle of this design tab, this design ribbon, there's table style options, okay? And we can specify that we have a header row or not. We can specify if we want a total row or not. Ooh, that sounds good. Let's click on total row. Look at that. Excel automatically puts a total row at the bottom and puts one formula in at the very bottom right. We're going to talk a lot about this particular formula because tables are going to be the foundation of a lot of things you do in Excel. So it's just real important to get our mind around tables and how we're going to use them and what we can use them for and how formulas work with tables. So down in this bottom right, Excel has automatically given us a formula. It's a subtotal formula. We see that in the formula itself, it doesn't reference a range of cells like we saw in earlier classes. It refers to the column of cells with the header total. Now that can be kind of handy. You look at the formula, you know exactly what it's referring to. That's kind of handy. The subtotal function, though, we're going to learn a little bit about. So let's see, first of all, let's see what happens if we just left mouse click somewhere outside the table. You'll notice up here in the menu bar, the table design is gone. Okay? Now Excel will change some of these ribbons and menu options based on where you've clicked your mouse, what cell you've selected. So this is a good example of that. If I left click my mouse anywhere inside the table, thus selecting the cell where I click, then Excel knows, hey, he clicked inside a table. I will give him the table design ribbon as an option to use up here on the menu bar. Okay, it's kind of important. You might, even while you're watching this video, I would bet that some of you have a cell selected down below at some point, and man, where did my table design go? I don't see it up here. Well, you need to left mouse click inside the table to get the table design tools. Okay, so let's work a little bit with this whole subtotal thing. Earlier on in this series, we used a formula called sum to sum a range of cells. So we're going to compare what subtotal does with what sum does. All right. All those functions have uses. Just need to understand what they're all used for. So let's make sure we understand what's going on here. So this subtotal function that Excel put in for us has some interesting stuff going on. Man, what is this 103? What does that number stand for? I know total is the range of cells in column N. Yeah, I can see where that needs to be summed down here in cell N9. But what is this 103 thing? Okay, well we're gonna learn a lot about that. So this formula that Excel put in for us, let's grab the fill handle at the bottom right. So left click on that cell that has the subtotal formula in it, grab that fill handle at the bottom right, that little button. I'm going to left mouse click and hold the click, and drag it back across all these months so that I have totals. Oh, you know what? Let's see here. November subtotal 103. That's interesting. What it did was count the how many values. So let's go back. Leave it as it is. This is good stuff. If something goes wrong, what can we do? We could hit undo, and that would, so if I went up here to the top left on the title bar and hit undo, I'd get rid of everything I just did. But I'm gonna put that back. I looked at that and I went, oh wow, I copied a formula with count in it. So let's go back to the original formula that Excel put in for us when we asked Excel to total the columns in this table. You'll notice there's a little drop down arrow to the right of the fill handle. Let's click on that drop down arrow. Lo and behold, I could have told Excel before I copied all these count formulas, I could have told Excel, hey, I don't want count, I want sum. Okay, so that's what I should have done. Come down here to sum, and I'm going to select sum. Okay, now that I know I have the formula correct for sum, I'm going to grab that fill handle, drag it across all these formulas that were not what I wanted, and now I get the sum of all the columns. Okay, so remember that there's another neat, quick thing Excel will do for you with tables. It will give you, on the total line, it will give you this drop-down arrow that allows you to make that total line an average, a count, count how many numbers, max, min, all of that. So just be aware that's there. We selected sum because I want you to see how these different formulas compare. Okay, and I want to make sure we understand what we have going on in this line here. So notice in the formula bar up here, notice the number 109. Keep that in mind. 109. Okay, so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to change total to subtotal 109. Okay, that's just so I remember what that row has in its formula. It's just a label. I'm going to do a few of these. Let's now do a row down here where we're going to use the sum function that we've used in other classes up to this point. You guys know how to do the sum function. So if I want to sum, not subtotal, but if I want to sum tanks 1 through 6 in January, I start my formula with the equals sign, and I'll say sum, and I'll use the tab key to have Excel type what it needs for the sum function in this cell. And I'm going to now tell Excel what I want it to sum, which means I'm going to left click on January tank 1, drag it across January tank 6, close that with my right parenthesis and hit enter. Sure enough, 230.3, 230.3, those match up. Good, good, good. So what's this subtotal doing that's different from sum? Let's see if we can figure it out. So I want you to go to the cell, I'm in B10, all right? And we're going to start a subtotal formula and just see how Excel helps us build it. And hopefully that's going to tell us what that 109 means. So I start a formula with equals. And I saw the function, it's subtotal, so let's start typing subtotal. Ah, there it is. So I'm going to select it with my left mouse click. It says it returns a subtotal in a list or database. Okay. So I'm going to select that. Ah, what is this? So it's telling me that I can subtotal a lot of different things on this menu here. I can subtotal an average, not really sure what that means. Subtotal account, we saw that. Subtotal account of just the text in a table. We can get the max, the min. We can get the product, standard deviation. So here's 9. Interesting. Let's keep going down through here and see what we see. Same list with a sum down here with 109. Now remember, 109 we wanted to keep in mind. Okay, so what is the difference between these subtotal functions? There's a 109 for sum that we could select, and there's a 9 for sum. Let's figure it out. The neat thing about Excel is we can try stuff. We can hit undo. We can figure stuff out. Now I know in row 9, our subtotal row, the formula uses that 109 function here, this function number 109. It's using this one up here in row 9. So let's pick the other one, this sum, to use in row 10. So I'm going to select it, hit the tab key, and what do I want it to subtotal? I want it to subtotal all of January for all 6 tanks. So look at this formula where the subtotal formula in row 9 has the number 9, has the number 109. We're going to just put in a 9 here and see what that does. So I'm going to close this with the right paren, hit enter. Let's make it let's just decrease the decimals so that it's just 1 decimal, and look at that, it's getting the same amount. Okay. Boy, the plot thickens. With the subtotal function, using reference number 109, we get 230.3. With the subtotal function using that function number 9, we get 230.3. And using the sum function, we get the same thing. So what's going on here? I'm going to remind myself what we're doing here in this row by just typing subtotal 9 is the number we're using. And I'm going to, you know what? I'm going to copy these new formulas we just created all the way across all 12 months. And we're going to see what happens in each of those. So I'm going to left click the fill handle. That'll copy, and then we're going to drag it across all these months. Maybe even come over under the total column and in column N. I let go the left mouse button, and everything looks the way we would expect. All the totals are the same. All right. So subtotal 109, subtotal 9, and sum. What are the differences between these functions? We're going to talk a little more about something we can do with rows and columns, a really important thing we can do. And that is, let's see, let me find my notes real quick. There they are. Move them over here. All right. So what we're going to do right now is, let's say we were looking at this table of data, and we've got tanks 1 through 6. I'm a supervisor overseeing this, and maybe I want this printed, or I want, for some reason, I just want to see tanks. I don't want to have tank 3 in the printout. I want that one eliminated from what I'm looking at. I'd like to just see this data with tank 3 gone. All right, so one thing you can do in Excel is you can hide rows and columns. I'm telling you, huge, useful thing to do. So what we're going to do, we want tank 3 to be hidden. We're going to move our mouse directly over row number 5. So the 5 in the row designator here. I'm putting my mouse right over the number 5. I'm going to right click on that 5. And I get it, you may have to hit it twice. I'm going to get a menu of things I can do. One of the things I can do is hide that row. All right, so I'm going to hide it. So now you no longer see tank 3 in this list. There's a little double line here so you can see something's missing. Okay, that's kind of important. Look at these subtotals and totals though. Using the function subtotal with the 109 number means that Excel will sum that range that we gave it and not include hidden rows. It could be really valuable. So notice our sum function and the subtotal with a 9 in it, they're unaffected. Even though we've hidden tank 3, they're unaffected. They still show us the total for all tanks in January. But maybe there are times when we would like to look at that total with certain rows pulled out of the data. If we want to look at it that way, we would use this subtotal function with the 109 reference. Okay? You can clearly see that formula, subtotal, paren 109 January, that function right there with the 109 will give us a total of a range, but not include hidden rows. All right? So how do we get tank 3 back? It's hidden. Well, it's kind of weird what we have to do. We left mouse click above and below the hidden row. Show you how to do that here in just a second, and then we'll unhide anything in between. And that's how we do it. So I'm going to left mouse click on the row that has tank 2, the row above the hidden row, tank 3. Now this is important. On the row below the hidden row, I'm going to hold my shift key down and left mouse click on on that row below the hidden row. In this case, row 6. I'm going to left click while holding the shift button. And now notice everything rows 4 through 6 has been selected. It's all changed color. Both of these are changed. So that area from row 4 to row 6 has been selected. All right, so I'm going to right click in that area and I bring up this menu we saw before. This time though, at the very bottom, I'm going to click on unhide, left click on unhide, and I get my tank 3 back. And notice my 109 subtotal is now back to normal because nothing's hidden, so it doesn't have to hide anything from the total. Okay, we're still trying to figure out what this other subtotal is all about. We'll check that here in a bit, but before I do, I want to show you how these filters work. Remember, every one of these headers, which in our case with our data table are months, every one of these headers came with a drop-down arrow, little drop-down menu arrow. If we click on it, it gives us some neat options. We can sort this whole data table by the numbers just in June. Smallest to largest, largest to smallest. We could even get real crazy and build some intense filters, less than, greater than, or equal to. You know, we might have, a table doesn't have to be just 5 rows. It could be 15,000 rows. And we might want all numbers between 50 and 60. So we can filter out everything else. Powerful, these filters are powerful. And then down here at the bottom, we can select whether or not we display certain data from this column of June. All right, so let's say I wanted to not show the row that has, for June, has 89.3 in it. I uncheck the box next to 89.3. I think that's 3. Okay, in my case, it's 89.8. When I hit OK, the row that contained 89.8 will be filtered out of the display. Okay. So now we see a difference in our subtotals. The first subtotal using the 109 reference shows a sum excluding what has been filtered out, like it did before. Our subtotal with a 9, amazingly, now also shows what's been filtered out. The sum function that we've used in other classes up to this point gives us the sum of all cells in June or January, regardless of whether they've been filtered out or not. And you'll notice something interesting too, before I forget. When you use these filters, Excel tries to remind you that you're using a filter. So over here on the left, you'll notice it's not like when we just made a row hidden. With filters, Excel color codes these row numbers blue so you and I know there has been a filter applied, and these rows are displayed because they match the filter. Okay, so that's a good thing to know about these colored row numbers. All right, you're learning a ton about tables. I hope having this on a video will enable you to go back and learn more and do this again and again so that you got these tables down. So, valid reasons for all of these subtotal options, okay? Just remember, subtotal 109 will display a subtotal excluding hidden rows or rows that are filtered out of the table. It'll do it all. It won't show you anything. If you've selected to remove something from view out of the table, it's going to only total what you've selected to view. It'll leave out everything else. Subtotal with the 9 in the function, so if we look up here at our formula, there's just a 9 right there in the function number place. Okay, when we use that function number, when we use that function number, it does not include rows that have been filtered out, but it includes rows if they've only been hidden. Okay, so that's a little different take using the function number 9 over function number 109 in this subtotal function. And the function we've used in the past, sum, it doesn't care. If you hide it, you filter it, it's going to show you the total. Now there's reasons, obviously, to use any of those formulas, and that's that. So now I've been working a lot. I've been work, and I forget. Wait a minute. I see these numbers over on the left. They're blue. I forget what I filtered. Well, let's look across these little drop-down arrows. One thing you can do, and there's multiple ways of doing this, if you look at each of these arrows, look at this one in June. Instead of just showing a drop-down arrow, it shows a drop-down with a little filter. So apparently, and I forgot, I've been working on this spreadsheet for days since I set this filter. That little button lets me know, Joel, it's the June column that you filtered. So now if I click that, oh yeah, I unchecked the row that had 89.8 in it. I'm going to put that back. And when I put it back, that little drop down gets rid of the filter image on the button, and there's nothing, no blue rows. I know I haven't filtered anything. I'm back to normal. Okay, and you'll notice all the sum functions and subtotal functions are returning the exact same value because we haven't hidden any rows, we haven't filtered out any rows, so they're all showing us the same number. Okay, checking my notes, there was one other thing I wanted to go over in this video, and that is sorting. If you've designated an area like this table of data as a table, Excel is excellent about treating this area as a table. Okay, so for instance, let's say I just want to keep track of one of these rows because I'm gonna show you how sorting works. And so I'm going to take this row, tank 4, and just for now, I'm going to format that. Oh, let's see. I'm going to use maybe how about that color? There's a good green we'll use. All right. Okay, I think that's going to work for me. Let's see what happens. Let's go to one of these months, say September. All right, and I'm going to click on September. I want this data table, the entire table, sorted by the values in September, from largest to smallest. So I can do that, sort largest to smallest. Okay? So notice the tanks are moved all around, but the tank data, the row of data associated with each tank, moved with it. All that happened was we sorted in descending order these values in September, and you can see these are in descending order. If we did that somewhere else, let's see, I wonder, you know what, let's not try 2 sorts. I don't want to get this too complicated. Like before, you'll notice the little drop-down arrow for September that gives us filtering and sorting options has changed. It doesn't have a little filter next to it or on that button, but it has a little tiny arrow pointing down, which means we're sorting by this row, this column, descending. So I'm gonna click on it, and I think I can just turn this off. Nope, I can't. I thought I could. Let's see. I want to clear this sort. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. You know what? In fact, let's do another sort to get this back. How would we do that? I could do undo. That would do it. But the way we originally had this sorted was by tank. Remember, we were in order. Tank 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's go over to the column that has tanks in it, and let's sort in ascending order by that column. Sort A to Z. Bam. So now we're back to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and September is back the way it was, not in any kind of order other than by tank. Okay? So real powerful feature to be able to sort by a particular column. For example, you may have a person, you may have a database of people and sales or accomplishments of some kind. And one point in time, you want to sort by their last name, maybe to print out their names and addresses, I don't know. But another time, maybe you want to sort by the highest producing salesman. So you go to his sales in a particular month or for a particular year, you go to that column that shows that data and you sort by that. And now you'll have your list of employees, your salesmen, not in alphabetical order, but in order by how much they sold. So this idea of sorting a table of data with the values in different columns, extremely powerful. All right, so what did we learn in this video? This is this 4th of 6. We reminded ourselves about using the fill handle to help Excel make some assumptions about filling in headers for us. So we typed January and February, selected those cells, grabbed the fill handle and drug it across out to December. Bam, Excel was able to type in March through December for us. We typed in tanks 1 and 2, selected those cells, grabbed the fill handle, drug it down. Excel filled in tanks 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 3, 4, 5, 6. We learned about the randomize function, a very powerful function that that randomizes or selects, picks a number randomly between 0 and 1, including 0. We wanted a number between 1 and 100, so we added to that function times 100. We set the decimal to 1, and then we copied it across 60 cells, and it filled it with a ton of data for us. Every time we calculated, though, that data would change. So what we did is we selected the entire area and copied it right over the top of itself, pasted it right over the top of what we copied. But when we pasted it, we did a special paste of values only, and that got rid of the formulas and left only the pasted values. Then we took that whole table and we had it formatted as a table on the Home tab ribbon. There was a button to format as a table, and Excel did a lot of automatic stuff for us there. It color-coded lines so that they're easier to track across the screen. It enabled us to include a total row if we wanted. It automatically put in filter buttons in every column so that we could filter and sort based on columns. Did that all automatically for us. And finally, we learned that Excel gives us the ability in a table to sum it or count it or average it, excluding rows that we hide. It'll exclude those using the subtotal with a function of 109. It'll exclude cells that we filter, rows that we filter using a subtotal function 9. We learned a little bit about that. So 109 excludes filters and hidden rows. Function 9 in a subtotal formula will only leave out of its calculation rows that are filtered. And finally, the sum function doesn't care if they're filtered or hidden. It's going to show you the total no matter what. So 3 different kind of totals of a column of data that all have unique uses. Beware of which one you're using and what it means to your totals. And then we also learned how to sort in a table of data, sort by a particular column, which could be very handy as well. All right, so that is our video number 4, class 4 of 6, introducing you to Excel. Powerful function. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. I've got, as I make this video, I've got videos 1, 3, now 4 done. I'll be making videos 2, 5, and 6 at some time in the very near future. So thanks again for being here. Hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it gets some use even after this, watching it again and again and practicing. And look forward to those other videos. We'll see you there.